Hi and welcome back to the Cities Reimagined podcast. Also hello if you're listening in via the EY Urban Voices podcast. Welcome. I'm your voice of choice, Johannes Riegler, and this is Reimagining Bruges. Have you ever been to Bruges in Belgium? Or watched the famous movie in Bruges maybe? Then you might know what role water plays in the cultural heritage of Bruges. If you arrive in the city and walk through the medieval part with all the canals and the tourist boats and this very fairy tale feel it has, then you might not see the pressure the climate crisis has on the city. So yes, Bruges is the city of canals and it has an extremely rich water heritage. And it was once one of the early economic powerhouses from the 12th to the 15th century, all because of its close connection to the water. Today is often named the Venice of the North due to its scenic landscape and the number of tourists who flock to the city each year. But did you know that Bruges is also named the Andalusia of the North, as Bruges and its region Flanders is very prone to droughts and heat waves in the summer months. The first time when I met the colleagues from the city of Bruges a couple of months ago, they mentioned how good the city has become over the centuries to flush the water right out of the city. When it rains, the water goes right out. Whereas today, actually, the times has changed and the water is needed right in the city, right where the canals are. So I'm more than happy that today we have a chance to get a deep dive into how there is yet another layer of water culture and connection between people, water and nature being built in the city. The Blue for Green project, an European urban initiative innovative action, is about combining the water management with the greenery, with biodiversity and the social value in Bruges historic neighborhoods. It is not just relevant for Bruges actually, because the topic is of water and nature in the city and climate change adaptation is so important for many cities around Europe and actually the world. So there's a lot to learn and a lot to unpack in today's episode. And I'm sure many of you who are working on these topics can learn from today's conversation. So today on the show we have Astrid Stroobandt from the city of Bruges, who's leading the project from the city side and who's navigating and sometimes bending the rules of bureaucracy and funding and the ambition to reshape public space for resilient urban futures. And we also have Simon from the NGO Waterland, which represents a civic perspective, engaging communities and working on participation and making water a connector among people and communities really. So whether you have visited Bruges before or not, maybe you will in the future, this is your chance to dive deep into a story where heritage, water, climate, green spaces, and actually the ancient infrastructure of the cities meet. But enough of the monologue, let's get the show on the road. Here's my conversation with Astrid and Simon. Astrid, Simon, thank you for being a guest on Cities Reimagined and the Urban Voices podcast. It's too. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Indeed.
What was the first personal memory you had with water and Bruges?
For me, must be like the tourist boats because you see the tourists hop on and hop off. And as a kid, the first time that I could be on a boat that my father took me on this touristic tour, I was so happy. I felt special, a bit chic. I could also do the tour.
Yeah, how old were you then? Do you remember?
I must be like 6 years old or something.
Made a huge impression. Nice. How about you, Simon?
Well, for me, it's, I would say boats and swans. I think that's the dominant image for me of Bruges. And in a way, it's still true, I think.
And Simon, you work on water a lot.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that. Why is that? Why the interest on water?
Well, for me personally, I think it's just a great feeling to dip in the water, swim in the ocean, a river, a lake, sit by the side with your friends, swim a little. That's for me the personal connection with water. Yeah. And then I started working with Waterland just because of first this idea of how much I care about water, but also how much other people don't really care about it anymore. You see, like, you have this pollution you have in water, and it's like this downward spiral, and we keep on spiraling. And that's because we lost connection with water. And I think if everybody would enjoy dipping in water or go to the water as much as I do, and I do think actually people do enjoy it because people want to go to the seaside, to lakes and whatever, they They will care about water, become friends with water, fall in love again, and then we can break this downward spiraling. So that's, for me personally and then professionally, what I think is important with water.
Very nice. And Astrid, you're leading the Blue for Green project, which is exactly about changing the water culture, perception, quality in Bruges. Tell us a little bit about that. Why water? I mean, when you look out of the window in Bruges, you think like, oh, there's a lot of water and it is very nice. You have a lot of canals. What is the problem with that?
Well, for me, I'm a citizen of Bruges, so I'm like also somebody who is linked to the sea. We have also our own coast side, Sea Bruges. So having a special connection with water. And with this project, it's a European Urban Initiative project, Blue for Green. I have a chance to really tackle some big challenges that we face with Bruges. The quality of the water flowing in from the canal Ghent Ostend. We are very dependent on having the water through a very small little hole in between wooden beams, the sluice of the inlet. And year after year, the water gets warmer. We have more blue algae plague. And also it's kind of, the scarcity of water is getting bigger and bigger. Bruges is known as the Venice of the North, but it's also the Andalusia. When we speak about droughts, we suffer from drought stress. So with this project, we can work on water quality and quantity, and that together with the citizens of Bruges. So that's a huge chance for me to make it better here.
What excites you about the project?
What excites me?
Yeah.
Well, it has so many layers. You can compare it like with a lasagna or something. We are in an historic UNESCO protected city. Even with this project, we'll look underneath the ground, what is there to buffer and save as much as water as possible with this old Moerbeuzen system. But besides that, we have a rain, we have the canals, but at this moment, it's not used to buffer water. It's there, it flows in and it flows out. But with Blue for Green, we will be able to buffer it at the source in our surface water with a system called Sustainable Urban Drainage System. And so doing this is really innovative for Bruges, having new sluices, having the University of Ghent also with nature-based solutions, working on water quality, and in co-creation, another layer with the citizens. So historic innovation and in co-creation, that's a lot. So it's quite exciting.
We'll come back to that, what the project is about, and all these different angles to the project, because there's so many different layers to that in a bit. But Simon, tell us a little bit about the connection, the current connection, let's say the mental and physical connection of the people of Bruges with the water. How do you perceive that from your work, and how do you see that?
Well, I think if you ask people about a connection with water, it's pretty distant, because it's really, what is the connection with water? If you ask someone on the street, it's really difficult to tell. In June, we organized the Urban Swim, one-day swimming event, and we did a questionnaire, and 50% of the people said, more or less, that water defines the identity in Bruges.
Yeah.
Another 30% said that people feel attracted to water. I think that's not, the numbers could be higher. And even if you see it in Bruges, I think it's maybe because the questions were a little abstract. And if you see people jumping into the water, it was just for leisure, but also people and organizations. All the sports swimming aspect is really big. It's a big community in Bruges. And if you see, for instance, has been swimming, I'm looking at Astrid, for more than 10 years, I think, inside of the city center.
Well, we have this Ice Bear swimming club that's 70s, since the 70s.
Since the 70s.
They're swimming in open water.
So I think it's pretty unique to see the history and then the pioneering for swimming. Yeah. So I think there's quite a connection for people of Bruges with water.
Yeah, because also historically, right, Bruges became rich very long time ago because of the connection to the water. It has this cultural identity around the water. There's a lot of water in the city as such. But still, when you're talking, it feels a little bit like there's the connection, but it could be better.
Well, I think the examples you give are rather economical examples. It's the economic history, and you see these kind of things, and it's not it's welfare, but it's not a personal connection. So I think in terms of history and economic, Bruges relies on its waterways, but personally could be a little bit more growth possible.
Yeah, that's completely true. It's an economic power, and we see tourists coming from the cruises in Bruges, and then they jump on the little boats in the city center. But it's something for the tourists. At the moment, it's not really defining the identity of the people of Bruges yet. So this social dimension is something, okay, we have these historic and sports clubs, but it's only since the Triennale, it's like an open air art exhibition that's in 2015, for the first time, they made a pontoon. It's called the Canals Swimmers Club, referring to this old ice bear sports club. But that it was a pontoon where it was accessible for all people. So for the first time, it was not able to swim, but to sit on the water.
Mm-hmm.
And since then, we have a swimming tradition to have a pontoon for recreational use. So not only for sportive swimmers, but for all people of Bruges. And so it's really a cultural thing. And now if we have more swimming events, we want to make it also something that's more as a public space, something social. When now it's more attached to summer swimming, we want to have it more as something that's normal, a place to be.
And Astrid, you mentioned before that Bruges is the Venice of the North, but also the Andalusia of the North. So it has challenges related to the water, to droughts and water shortages. What are the risks if Bruges and cities like it would fail to adapt to the new climate realities, to these droughts and so on?
We have our risks mapped in the study. It's called the Climate Adaptation Plan, and there are 6 big risks for the inner city. We talk about water, flooding, loss of water quality, drought stress, the drop of the groundwater table. These are all risks that have been mapped and that we see year after year that are becoming reality, and summers getting hotter and it starts sooner in the year. So it's not longer a theoretical risk, it's a reality.
That you would run out of water, like drinking water then?
That one was not on the risk.
Just that the water levels, the groundwater levels sink.
Sink, and that greenery, the city greenery dies. Yeah. And we see that already. We have some climate resilient forests that have been planted, and we see that they can't survive at these times. Mm-hmm. So it is real.
And Bruges is very pretty. It's a pretty city. It's a very, it's like a fairy tale city when you come here from time to time. And it is a UNESCO World Heritage City for very good reason. And would you say that being a city which has this historic identity makes, or this very, this cultural heritage, makes it at times difficult to adapt to these new emerging challenges related to climate change, biodiversity crisis, and so on?
Of course, it brings some limits with it. In the end, the goals that the UNESCO Heritage Cell has here in the city, it's conservation of the city for the future. So it is a shared goal when it comes to climate change. We also act now for future generations. So it's a very nice collaboration between the Heritage Cell and public domain when we talk about the actions we take. So I can't complain. Yeah. It is a bit of an advantage. And like I said, with this old pipe system of the Moerbeuzen, it's part of the project. It is unsure if this will work, if it will be, we will study it first, if we can.
Tell us a bit about that. What is that? What are the Moerbeuzen?
So back in the 13th century, Bruges was like the New York when it comes to water supply. There was an old water house that pumped up the water for the citizens. And because it was too polluted in the city, because it was an open sewerage, they pumped it up from outside. And this system, we will research if it's feasible to reconnect and have the old wells that are now out of order most of the time can work again. And you can see in old pictures that it is also like a place where people gather to chat and not only to get some water, because the houses in Bruges are typically rather small and there's not much place to buffer your own water in a rain barrel. So maybe that will bring a whole new social dynamic as well.
Yeah. I find it super fascinating that you have this old infrastructure under the city. And last time when I was here, I had the chance to meet your city archaeologist, which was also very fascinating. What he told, what treasures and what unexpected things are still under the city. Simon, I would like to stick with you a little bit with the identity, the water identity. How would you related to the project, to Blue for Green, how would you describe this new water identity which should be or could be developed over the next year? So what we didn't mention before, the project started earlier this year or in the beginning of the year, January. Officially. So we have October now. 10 months ago. What can you say already, and where do you see that going in the next months and years?
Well, I'm a little bit shy of these big words such as identity and water identity, because what does it mean actually? Analyze it maybe in different ways.
What does it mean for you?
For me, identity. For me, it's how you would, I already talked a little bit earlier on, it's how you would relate to water. And it could be little parts, big parts, but I think it's maybe in the core of humankind, I believe that there is some part that people want to be connected to water. It's like Astrid says, like if you make it possible to reach at water level, not like the quay walls, which are now 4 meters high, it's easier to access it. Well, then people go there. People go chat, connect at water. I think water could be like it's like a glue for people maybe. And then, well, is it part of the identity? It could be, well, maybe like water seeping through between all the little cracks and corners and then be like the connecting part between people. That's maybe what it would mean to me, but I think it's a really big word, and I'm always a little bit scary of these big words.
What are you doing with Waterland in the project?
With Waterland in the project, it's we're on one part also trying to make people connect with water again. So we are organizing together with the City of Bruges the swimming events. We did this last summer in June, a test case. So it's on one part. We're also working on an art installation, which put people challenged to reflect about water. And then on the other hand, also in the Magdalena Quarter, it's the pilot area where we are looking how we can co-create, activate people on private property, public property, and also on water level. Like what can they do, or how can we connect with them to build a blue and green city?
And you forget about school workshops.
It's also a part of it, but it's a house with many rooms, I think.
Yeah.
And last Monday, so yesterday, we had the first school workshop where we are working with 11 and 12-year-olds on how to look at water. What does it mean, a healthy waterway? What does it mean if it's not healthy? We look at little water animals, but also what could it be? Water in the city, in your streets. And it's also, we're working with a workshop for dreams, and they were imagining their dreams for a water city. Mm-hmm. And it's really nice to see what these young minds can think, and when they're not like obstructed by reality or something.
But why children?
Well, why children? I think, to be honest, I think there's two ways. One is also very practical, like schools, they're really eager to let the children learn. And it's really easy to offer something and they can come to you. But also, I think the main part and most important part is that these minds are not, like I said, obstructed by reality, and they still have to be formed. And if you form them in the right way and make them care about water, like we do, I think it's already souls we won for the future.
What do you think? What do you think, Astrid?
Yeah, if I saw the pictures, you also asked the children, what would you like to tell to the rain? What would you like to get to know better? What lives underneath the surface? And their imagination is so rich. And they tell it's not only about the school system, and it's should be obligatory, that water quality and water education and also the water history of Bruges, children should know and learn about it, but they tell about it when they're at home. Because for their parents, it's also something, it's there, it is taken for granted, and they don't think about it anymore, that it is a scarce good, So it's a way to also reach the parents. And so,
I'm not a parent, so it's really nice to see that how you look at maybe what your children teach you as well. So it's cool.
And we have to add yet another layer to this very complex project, or to this very holistic project, and that is more the technological part of it, right? Because you're also working on data integration, on automatization of the gates, of the sluices, of the inlet and the outlet of the water system in the canals. But also besides that, there's also this understanding, you want to see the water as a public space, with the swimming, with what you do with the different activities. What do you do to make that a reality? You already mentioned the swimming, but can you go a bit more into this part of understanding water as a public space?
Then I will jump back to when we talk about the technology behind it. There will be a whole new hardware, let's say the new sluices. They will talk to each other based on some software, water balance algorithm fed by a whole network of sensors, level sensors, water quality sensors, but also prediction of the rainfall in the coming hours, month. And then the sluices get a commando to open this much centimeter or to close. But this whole system, we also have a little model and a maquette. It's built, it's a mobile maquette, and we go to the neighborhood and we go to the schools as well with this maquette and tell the story why we want to have new sluices, why do we want to buffer the water. So we link this big innovation project to on a district level.
And I think we make it a project for all the districts, like you said, and also the water as a public space. I think it's an interesting way because for us it's also the core of Waterland. Now it's looked over, but I also think it's a fine line. It's public space, but we should also remember that maybe we are guests, and it's not. The water is also alive and it's full of life. And then we should also treat it as such, not it's our public space, I think. And for instance, I think a good example this summer was already talked about urban swimming. In June, we organized the public swimming event. And at first we designated an area for the swimming. But just 1 week before the swimming event, I came to visit and I saw 2 swans breeding. So then I thought, okay, these swans, I can imagine in Bruges, it's not really going to help for our location.
The swans are the real royals here, right?
Yeah, they're treated as such. I think it's also, there's a myth that how many 54 swans? We need
52.
52 swans.
It's important. It's also important to mention that.
Yeah.
For the project.
Well, we have some new ones now released. Yeah. The little chickens of the swans. They are big enough now. They are in puberty and they're released on the water.
So luckily you have enough swans.
So we have some new next generation of swans. So we're
Gen Z swans.
We're saved for the.
But Astrid, you need to tell us the fairy tale behind that now, because everybody is now. What's the number of the swans?
Well, for me, the knowledge is also like you have to have 52 swans, otherwise we're cursed, and that's why there is a whole service in public domain. There is a service. They take care. They are really caretakers of the swans, from little chicken to when they are released. And when we have this blue algae plague, then they go to quarantine, and then they have their own spa with fresh water and
jacuzzi.
And we even have one of a neighboring city in Dixmude, because they stay with the same partner their whole lifetime. And now we have an experiment. The swan in Dixmude, the other city, his partner died and he was really depressed. So now we will try to match him with a swan here in Bruges, but it's unsure if this will work. So, yeah.
So we will come back to that in the next episode. In a year from now, we will hear how the swan babies and the swan is going. But you said something also connected to the swimming and the blue algae plague, because I know for a fact you had in the summer a huge blue algae plague, which made it impossible to set up the swimming at the venue where you actually wanted to set it up. And that just kind of underlined the importance of this project, right? Can you tell us about that? And I think you also had some work with the University of Ghent, how to deal with that.
Yeah, I mentioned that we have this swimming pontoon every year now since the Triennale. During summer in July and in August, you can just go and swim. It's for free. You don't have to register. Mm-hmm. There are lifeguards. It's very cozy. But we saw in the measurements in the sample campaign of our own city lab that the blue algae was there much earlier in the year, right when swimming was really, when it was time to swim, there was also a lot of blue algae. And since 11th of July, it was closed. So no swimming anymore. And then this in our project, there is also a part that is about water quality within nature-based solutions. And the purpose of these solutions is to get rid of the nutrients of the blue algae. But we changed it a bit and we jumped on the problem. And the university did some extra research in the summer, not only how to prevent, but how do you cure it when it's already there, when you have a very severe plague. So, the whole summer we used this pontoon not to swim, but to research, and the professor was there. He built like a tiny house where the pump installation was there, and we also were a bit suspecting that he was even sleeping there, busy working and searching how to save the swimming zone. But in the end, it was not possible. It was not possible to reopen, but we gained a lot of insights to prevent it for the next year.
Yeah, and I think it's now mentioned in Bruges, but you see it in pretty much all over Flanders. Like at the end of the summer when the water temperature rises, it's like a lot of these zones, swimming zones, and we don't have a lot yet, but they close. And the funny thing is, in the beginning of the summer, when it's still a little bit rainy, or in May, then everything closes because of the sewage overflows. So then we're E. coli. So it's we shift from E. coli to blue algae. I wanted to mention also yet again upon the urban swim with the city of Bruges. They told me they have made a protocol to measure E. coli and detect leakages from individual houses. And I think it's really inventive and to work on a cheap way, just with the local. Well, they take samples every 20 meters, and when the samples they peak, they know that somewhere in that area is a house which is directly polluting the water with their household water. Because of the urban swim, I think they closed 3 leakages directly in the water. So it's really nice to see how, like, the city of Bruges, which works really well, developed a relatively cheap protocol to stop directly polluting the water in function of swimming. So it's really cool to see this is already working, not as set up in the project, but just how the city works.
Because I guess it's very difficult to adapt, or you mentioned how to find these leakages, but since it's not legal to dump the sewage in there, but still it happens.
And I think it's maybe back again to the historic value of Bruges. City. Yeah, they don't know how it's built.
It's a medieval city, and the infrastructure is not it's not ready everywhere.
It might also not be mapped as such, or do people know in the houses that
they don't know? I guess it's only when we had the research done and when we get when we have when we try to contact them, and then we're a bit dependent on their cooperation to let us in, because we have to do the fluoricide in their toilet to know if it comes out in the canals. So
You already mentioned the Magdalena Quarter before, which is a neighborhood where you gonna test a lot and do a lot of activities. And over there, you also made a tree, at the moment, only one tree, I think, tree talk. Tell us about that. How do you make a tree talk?
Well, we talked a lot about water, and that is a very innovative water management project. But what is really like unique is that we link the needs of the young trees to the supply of the water in the canals that we do not use until now. We will change that. And the tree watch is one of the sensors that is translating how the tree feels. So it tells you something about the sap flow, about the growth, and then it's even real time. If you go to treewatch.net, you can see the tree in Bruges. And the funny thing is, the tree has the same activity as a human. It gets up in the morning and then the sap flow starts, and in the evening it goes down again. And so these things, to make this visible, and on occasions we give the tree a voice, that's something special. So in this way we have the water online, but we have also not only this one tree with the tree watch, but we will have 90 trees with sensors, so that we can link the supply of the water with the needs of the green. When is the tree in green stress? And that's what's making this project unique, that we have this matchmaking between water and the greenery.
I find it so fascinating that you also how you talk about these sensors. They make the trees talk, because usually a tree is something very, let's say, static in a city, and it's either healthy or if you're not a biologist, it's healthy because it blooms and has leaves, but there's or not, and there's not much to it where you can actually see how the tree is doing. This is very, very cool, I find. You mentioned also very importantly that blue for green, it says in the name, is connecting blue for green. But why is it so important for you to combine that? Why is it for a city administration so important to bring that together? Because usually it's different teams working on it, different departments, different services. Why is it so important for Bruges?
Well, this kind of organization that everybody is in its own department of silo. If we talk about the data that are connected to it, then we want to change that with this kind of ecosystem thinking that we see in nature. That you have to adapt your organization, and that's a really nice chance that we get with this project. Otherwise, the opportunity wouldn't be there to also grow as an organization. So that's the nice thing about the project, that we have our colleagues from the Informatica IT department, from the communication, from the heritage cell, archaeology. So it brings everybody together. So it's not only about matchmaking in nature, it's also in a city.
I like that a lot, because it also highlights how if you want to have a change in a city, that you cannot just roll out a technology or experiment with things in the city, but it requires also some kind of organizational change, administrative change.
Yeah, for sure. And it helps to have this big project as like a common goal, and we all want to make a change, but there are so many deliverables, and it makes it all very concrete that it helps to push this collaboration cross department forward. Yeah.
I can imagine that's also challenging at times, right? To find a common direction on that.
Yeah, we have this big goal, and everybody is quite enthusiastic to work on it. So you can pick this project is such a big project that everybody sees something in it. For the moment, we're almost 1 year now with Blue for Green. Things are getting on speed now, and everybody his nose or her nose is now well in the same direction of making Bruges better for the future.
For me, as an outsider of the city of Bruges, it's nice to see how the city administration is like they want to go ahead, and there's enthusiasm, and it's really nice to see how this one integral project is also being very well deployed by the city servants.
Yeah,
it's cool to see.
Yeah, and you said it's such a big project, and I think there's so many other cities can learn from this experience in Bruges. We're actually here now because in the next days, there's 3 other cities coming to Bruges to see what you're testing here, what you're experimenting with, how they can maybe take parts of that and replicate and translate to their environments. What are the things other cities can learn from that? What do you think?
Let's find out tomorrow.
Yeah.
For me, we're very much into this project, operational, but also communicating it. So I'm curious what they want to learn, and it will also give us new oxygen to look to our own project. So it would be a bit, I don't know, self-aware. I don't know what they can learn this or that from us.
And it's very early in the process because they will learn over the next years with you.
The best thing that they can learn from us is to prevent the mistakes or delays that we struggle with today, and that we can give them some advice.
Simon, what is blue for green for you?
What is blue for green for me? I think it's a approach to make a future-proof design for the city and an integral part to look at water and green and to challenge the future in a nice holistic way, in one long sentence.
How about you, Astrid?
For me, as a project manager, it's all about innovative water management at the service of our urban greenery, and it blends in with so many different dimensions that are already at play in Bruges, like our heritage. So it's that's blue for green for me, like in.
And how would you describe it if we look forward 15 to 20 years? How would a city like Bruges feel with, let's say, all of your innovations, all of your approaches implemented? What would you hope for? Maybe you dream a little and have a vision. What would you did smell and feel and be like to walk the city streets in like 20 years?
I hope it will smell better than now after a rainfall. Clear water will definitely be part of that dream, and water as a playground, something that's natural to go to enjoy, to swim in, where now it is more limited for economic, for touristic purposes, with, of course, here and there. We have our swimming events and breaks, but that it's more 50-50. It's as much of a place to be for the people of Bruges than it is to have fun for the tourists.
Nice. How about you, Simon?
I would say it would be a place where people like to stay on the smallest scale. Like, you shouldn't go to a park, but the outside of your doorstep is the park. Like Astrid said, like the houses are pretty small, the gardens are pretty small, not everybody's a garden. And I think if you have like a lot of green space everywhere and people would meet each other, vibrant, and not only in the city center, but like every small street.
Super nice. Astrid, Simon, thank you so much for being guests on the show and for hosting me in this amazing room and in the amazing city of Bruges. I'm looking forward to the next days of meeting swans, other cities, and exploring Bruges more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. If you want to find out more about the Blue for Green project, make sure to check out the show notes where you find links to articles and much more. Also make sure to check out the website of the European Urban Initiative and Portico, the gateway to urban learning. Links are in the show notes as well. We will come back to the city of Bruges in a year from now. Until then, I hope to catch you soon.